It is entirely possible that Elon Musk ends up being the catalyst that finally brings about Donald Trump's political demise. And when you look at the rogues gallery of challengers and scandals he survived, that is a profound statement. This volatile, on-again, off-again partnership between two of the most impulsive billionaires in the United States has been a defining, ugly characteristic of the Trump era since the beginning. It is a relationship fueled by fragile egos, deep-seated grievances, and a mutual conviction that rules simply do not apply to men like them. But now, that dynamic is becoming actively toxic. Following reports that he was quietly marginalized and humiliated by Trump's inner circle, Elon Musk has just dropped a new election-related bombshell that threatens to exacerbate an already deteriorating situation. Somehow, Musk has managed to become even more politically radioactive than Trump himself. That isn't just a hot take. The data backs it up. There is virtually no figure in American politics right now with higher disapproval ratings than Elon Musk. And given the latest developments, he is on the verge of making Donald Trump despise him as well. At the precise moment that the MAGA movement is fracturing, turning on itself, and facing down a punishing midterm landscape, Musk is reinserting himself into the narrative in the most chaotic way imaginable. This isn't an act of loyalty. It certainly isn't a brilliant strategy. It is simply the collision of two massive narcissists, and Trump is the one positioned in the blast zone. We are going to unpack all the details, but first, we need to establish the context. Whether Trump manages to limp through the remainder of his term or spends the next 2 years buried under a mountain of investigations depends entirely on one factor, the midterms. And right now, the numbers look disastrous. We aren't talking about spin ugly. We are talking about reality ugly. Harry recently broke down the latest polling data, and it paints a very stark picture of where things are headed. Let's begin there. Donald Trump was ostensibly elected to fix the economic crisis and bring down prices. But at this stage, every relevant metric is trending in the completely opposite direction regarding the economy. When you ask people if the country is on the right track or the wrong track, the shift is undeniable. Back in January, those numbers were fairly evenly split. About 43% said wrong track and 36% said right track, just as Trump took office. But look at the change now. That wrong track figure has skyrocketed to 56%. That is a massive majority saying the country, particularly regarding the economy, is heading toward disaster. Meanwhile, the right track number has collapsed to 29%. What started as a single-digit gap has exploded into a 27-point deficit. The bottom line is simple. Donald Trump is attempting to spin a narrative of success, but the American people, looking at these new numbers, simply aren't buying what the White House is selling. So, what is fueling this pessimism? We have covered this repeatedly, and we will continue to do so because polling, like the data released yesterday by NBC News, confirms it. When asked about the top concern for themselves and their families, the answer is overwhelming. Number one, at 44%, is inflation. The next closest issue, taxes and take-home pay, sits way back at 9%. Inflation is the singular force driving this economic gloom. Until the American electorate believes that inflation is tamed, their pessimism about the economy will persist because it is the number one issue by a massive margin. Leaving the president aside for a moment, how does this play out between the parties? This is critical. Often, we assume that even if the president is blamed, Republicans might still hold an edge. But look at the data regarding which party is trusted more on rising prices. In October 2022, before the last midterms, Republicans held a 14-point advantage on this issue. Today, that has completely flipped. Democrats are now trusted more by 4 points. That shift signals that it is over for Donald Trump's narrative. He is underwater on virtually every major issue, and he is now losing ground on topics that were supposed to be the bedrock of his MAGA base. For the first time since he became the face of the GOP, Republican voters are starting to show a preference for traditional Republicans over the MAGA brand. That isn't a statistical error. That is a loss of control. He is losing his grip on a coalition that is visibly cracking. Instead of confronting this reality, Trump is on the road peddling the same tired fantasy about how wonderful everything supposedly is. But it's false, and the voters know it. We saw this play out clearly in Pennsylvania last week, where Trump tried to spin his usual tall tales and was immediately shut down. Governor Shapiro didn't let the rhetoric slide. He called out the lies directly. And this context is vital before we discuss Elon's midterm bombshell. As Shapiro noted, it is insulting to the people of Pennsylvania for Trump to show up and lie to them, trying to convince them to ignore the reality of rising grocery bills and costs that they see with their own eyes. Even J.D. Vance seems afraid to correct his boss, resulting in more dishonesty. But the people of Pennsylvania are smart enough to reject that nonsense. Governor Shapiro is spot on. Donald Trump cannot gaslight people who are watching their rent, insurance, and food costs climb by simply setting off fireworks and ranting about Hillary Clinton. That distraction doesn't work when people feel their material conditions worsening every single day, and those conditions are worse because of Donald Trump. This is the man who promised prices would fall, yet they have gone through the roof while he obsesses over his social calendar, personal grudges, and inexplicable conflicts with nations like Venezuela. His focus is not on working families, costs, or stability. Therefore, no amount of rallies or unhinged speeches about fictional serial killers will change anyone's mind. Trump is flailing, and the polls reflect that. The midterms are shaping up to be a brutal reckoning. This brings us to Elon Musk because his recent announcement tears open one of Trump's biggest vulnerabilities from the last election cycle. It starts with a candid admission from Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, who described Musk as an odd duck, noting his habits and drug use. That characterization collided with breaking news this morning. Elon Musk is diving into the 2026 midterms for the GOP. One observer online immediately pointed out the electoral map in Wisconsin the last time Musk got involved. While Musk helped Trump in the presidential run, his attempt to replicate that influence in Wisconsin's state Supreme Court race was a disaster. He dumped unprecedented amounts of money into that race, blatantly trying to purchase the result, and only succeeded in landing himself in legal hot water. Now, apparently believing we haven't suffered enough, he has announced he is dipping his billionaire toes back into the waters of American democracy, something nobody asked for. Elon Musk getting involved in the 2026 midterms is hard to view as anything other than a catastrophe for MAGA. Their problem won't be a lack of funds or ad buys. It will be the glaring perception that Donald Trump has sold out the country to a billionaire oligarchy that is once again trying to buy our elections. Elon entering the fray is a gift to Democrats in red districts who can now point to him and say, "There is the man trying to buy your vote again, the same man who helped create this mess." And let's be clear, Elon isn't talking about a small donation. We are likely talking about hundreds of millions, potentially even $1 billion poured into these elections. And despite his claims, he isn't doing it to steer America in the right direction. That is the story people believed before they saw who he truly was. It's the "he's a rich genius, he must know economics" myth. It sounds familiar because it is the exact same con Donald Trump ran during his first campaign. But what did Elon actually do when the hype faded? He slashed thousands of jobs. He helped dismantle programs that keep people alive, decisions that have had lethal consequences globally. He decided, based on billionaire whims rather than policy, to blow up how America engages with the world. Scrapping aid programs doesn't just hurt America's global standing, the effects boomerang back home. Much of the food aid we send abroad is purchased from American farmers. If you are a struggling farmer in Iowa or Nebraska and those orders dry up, that's on Elon. If Northern New York feels the squeeze, it's from the same source. The political reality is that no serious voter feels good about a candidate bankrolled by Elon Musk, a man on track to be the first trillionaire, while their own healthcare premiums double. He helped cause that squeeze. He enriched himself to an abstract degree while regular people struggle to afford food. And now he wants to influence the midterms. He did manage one moment of transparency, admitting Trump was in the Epstein files, only to immediately walk it back, fold, and pretend it never happened. So, what goodwill does Elon Musk have left? Zero. He is the most unpopular figure in politics for a reason. Some Republicans might see his wallet as a lifeline, but money didn't save them in recent New York elections, and it won't save them in the midterms. People are exhausted by billionaires and the oligarchy. They are tired of the establishment pretending this is normal. AOC laid this out perfectly. She noted that they are targeting vulnerable groups, children, students, permanent residents, and threatening citizenship based on ethnicity. The administration has lied about its enforcement agencies, while wealthy actors sell a myth to defend it. The myth is that our immigrant neighbors are the enemy, a story sustained so that oligarchs can get away with robbing everyone else. The real crime, as she pointed out, is the transfer of $170 billion from healthcare and food assistance into the pockets of private contractors and secret police programs. It is about authoritarians creating a black box to suppress dissent. But that hatred is a fabrication we can reject. We are a country that defeated the Confederacy and fascism, a country guided by the ideal of freedom that welcomes the huddled masses. This situation is a bombshell that will hit Donald Trump squarely. I promise you, the tide has turned. There is no going back to the imaginary time when people thought he or Elon Musk knew what they were doing. The public sees them clearly now. They see the game, and it isn't complicated. It is about self-enrichment. Period. That is the project. Government to them is not something to govern, but something to strip for parts. That is why they cut aid, not for efficiency, but for cruelty. That is who they are, and that is why they must be called out. We will keep doing exactly that here every day. If you want to support this work, hit subscribe and like the video. If you made it to the end, leave a blue heart in the comments. Keep fighting, don't let them silence you, and I'll see you next time.